City Council to order, please. Roll call.
Yes, Councilmember Carr?
Here.
Councilmember Panduro?
Here.
Councilmember Sandhu?
Here.
Councilmember Tonneson is absent. Councilmember Williams?
Here.
Vice Mayor Bertani?
Here.
And Mayor Moy.
I'm here.
Thank you.
And tonight, the invocation will be presented by Pastor Tim Williams of the Band of Believers. Or not. So
I had John Reed of Fairfield Church of Christ, no?
Oh, there you right on.
Please pray with me.
Are you Pastor Reed?
I am.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Yes.
Let's pray. Dear God, we thank you so much for opportunities such as this to come before you and to your throne. And we know, Lord, we are able to do that because of Jesus the Christ and his sacrifice that he made and allows us to come into your very presence to bring our concerns, our petitions, but also the thankfulness for the blessings that you continue to bestow upon us each and every day of our lives. Lord, we just are so thankful and appreciative of a place like Fairfield, the city thereof. We thank you so much for providing it for us. We just thank you for the many, many public servants, our council people, our caregivers, and our protectors, Lord. And we just ask that you will continue to bless them with the health and strength that they need and the wisdom and knowledge to provide the service and leadership and guidance to the city. We ask you to be with this assembly tonight. Give us direction. Father, help us to be able to discuss and resolve the things that are necessary. And just guide us, Father, that we will be more efficient in all the work that we need to do. We know, Lord, that each day brings a different challenge, and we just ask that as we go through this life that you will always be a part of this. Help us always, Father, to recognize when you are speaking to us and embrace the direction that you would give us. We thank you so much for this night and for this day. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. And Councilman Sandu, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we're going to go ahead and turn to council reports, and we'll start with you, Councilman Sandu.
No report today. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Madam Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for everyone for coming out and tuning into the meeting this evening. I just want to remind you that the Fairfield Clergy Action Network, or Fairfield CAN, will be holding its second Fresh Food Festival on next Wednesday, May the 28th, at noon at David Weir Elementary School. That's at 1975 Pennsylvania Avenue, and it is exactly what it sounds like. The Clergy Action Network has identified various, quote, food deserts in the city of Fairfield, and so we're showing up at these schools on Wednesdays, which are minimum days for the schools, and when the parents come to pick up the kids, we're there with a mini farmer's market of fresh food and vegetables and bags, and the last one that we had was very well attended, very much appreciated, so we thought we'd do it again, and we're doing that on Wednesday, May 28th, 1 o'clock at David Weir Elementary School. And I attended the Association of California Water Agencies, or ACWA, last week with the mayor and Councilwoman Panduro, and I heard some very compelling, interesting information and sessions regarding water agencies, of which the city of Fairfield is one, a California water agency. So I just wanted to report to you really quickly, because this was compelling in that some of the presenters were from water agencies that were a part of the response to the Southern California fires in January of this year. So they have very good information, very up-to-date information. And at this session, before we left, the presenter said, if you leave this session and you do not report back to your cities and implement these best practices, then that's just a disservice and almost irresponsible. So I thought that was kind of ominous. So this session was called Legal Duties and Risks for Water Agencies in Fire-Prone California. And the presenters listed new and escalating risk factors that water agencies that provide water to our city, are facing in this 21st century environment. So of course, we have the climate change and drought conditions resulting in increasing wildfire frequency and severity, unprecedented demands on water systems like the one in LA, like the one in the city of Fairfield. These water systems just are not built to fight these kinds of 21st century environmental condition, hotter and angrier fires. Budgetary limitations on water infrastructure investments, and extensive property damage resulting from what they termed as ember-driven fires, which just carry embers for miles away from the actual initial fire point to neighboring cities and neighborhoods. So with these and other key factors, California water agencies face complex challenges and at the intersection of wildfire liability, or the agency's liability for wildfires, with our city's role as property owners, as asset owners, and as municipal water suppliers. The standard that our city is meant to adhere to is that California public agencies must maintain property in a reasonably safe condition to prevent foreseeable harm. Reasonable, those are legal terms, reasonably safe conditions to prevent foreseeable harm, and legal liability may arise from the failure to address known hazardous conditions, or liability may arise from neglecting to conduct regular inspections. So, fast forward from January of this year in LA, the city of Los Angeles has been named as a defendant in over 50 lawsuits and counting. And they're related to, of course, the wildfire events from earlier this year. Many of those lawsuits allege a theory called inverse condemnation, which is just a legal theory by which residents can sue the water agency or the city for property damage resulting from wildfires. And the plaintiffs in these cases that have been filed by residents in LA County claim that the city's infrastructure and operations contributed greatly to their fire damage, to their property damage. The plaintiffs are also focusing on alleged inadequacies of the city's water supply systems during the wildfire events, and these plaintiffs are relying on recent case precedent, particularly a case out of the city of Oroville in 2019, and they're alleging that the deliberate design and construction of the city's water system presented an inherent risk to private property owners, and that the city designed the water system so that it would not have enough water pressure to fight those fires that we saw in January. They also, the presenters covered a variety of cases in kind of a case study where different claims are alleged by residents who have suffered fire damage to their residents and businesses, including vegetation management claims, hydrant supply shortcomings, negligence of city employees in accidentally starting a spark that then creates embers that carries over to different neighborhoods, and infrastructure failure claims. So the cities and other water agencies are operating in these kinds of challenging times. So now more than ever, an ounce of prevention is truly worth a pound of cure. And the presenters challenged us attendees to come back to our cities and ensure that we are following best practices and basically some of the lessons that they learned in January and the following months in what they should have done, what they shouldn't have done, and what they'll do differently. So here's a quick list of best practices and strategies that we were all, as attendees, challenged to bring back to our cities. Number one, conduct regular water system audits. Water system audits, focusing on fire flows, water pressures, and equipment reliability to ensure optimal system performance during emergencies. Number two, routinely educate stakeholders. The presenter said that this is one of the big failures that they experienced with the fires in January in LA. they had not done an adequate job at educating the public, the community, prophylactically before something happens about here's what to expect, here's what we're going to do, here is what we need to do. So there was a lot of confusion, of course, in very scary conditions, and the lack of information to the community just added insult to injury. So that's one of the things they said they're going to do differently. Number 3, establish and publish enhanced communication strategies. Develop robust communication plans with the community regarding proper water usage during wildfire events to promote safety and conservation. Number 4, establish and publish comprehensive emergency plans and detailed response protocols specifically for wildfire scenarios, and offer the public training, community training on what to do, again, to, diminish the prospect of undue confusion in already extreme conditions. Number 5, coordinate with local fire authorities, establish clear agreements for hydrant maintenance, water pressure expectations, and mutual aid agreements for emergency response. Request mutual aid before you need it. That was another shortcoming. That was kind of a lesson learned as a result of them going through the fires. And, consider using advanced technologies such as helihydrants, water hydrants for helicopters, and other technology that's out there. And the most important best practice, one of the most important that I'll end with, but there's a laundry list of others, is that the water agency should document all fire prevention activities and emergency responses from the very beginning of an event to ensure FEMA reimbursements if we were to experience a catastrophic fire like that. So again, and mitigation strategies, of course, which we are currently doing in Fairfield. So that is my report from Aqua. I think that, maybe we can talk as a council about this or have some reporting on this and think about and really kind of fortify our strategies and make sure that the entire city is aware of what we're doing to prevent and mitigate these kinds of events happening in our city. We're, one ember away from some activity that, may not be able to be contained. So that is my report, and I will, hopefully we'll be discussing more on this moving forward. That's my report. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. Councilwoman Banduro.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. So last week, we had the pleasure of doing a ribbon cutting for the new all-inclusive playground over at Allenwood Park. And I grew up here, so I remember when it was I know the mayor can also attest to this, when it was a very, it was a rocket ship that was not made out of plastic, it was made out of steel. So it was you had to be very cautious going down that slide. And so it's great that not only was that rocket ship kept, but then it was also made all-inclusive. So if you do have a wheelchair, it's made so that all abilities can enjoy the park, and they did a great job with it. So I want to thank Parks and Rec and all those who were involved with creating this new space and to giving it new life. I also attended the Aqua conference, and I just wanted to say thank you to Michael Heather, who is our water guy. He's in the back corner, and also the folks from the Solano Irrigation District who attended. They both shared great insights and education around our current water challenges, as the Vice Mayor mentioned. But then also, I had the opportunity to meet the owners and managers of Sites Reservoir. So as you know, everyone knows there is water challenges, and a lot of times we do have a lot of dry spouts in the state. And so what happens when we don't have enough water to bring into the city? And so Michael has been working with the Sides Reservoir, which is a unique multi-benefit water storage project that will capture and store water from major storms. It gives our city the ability to diversify where we receive our water from, especially during dry years, and specifically when Lake Berryessa is not filling up like we hope it would be. This reservoir is located in Maxwell, which is about an hour away from Sacramento. And the city of Fairfield is actually on the wait list to be able to have a water allocation. So it's really exciting that, and I thank Michael for his innovative approach to making sure that our city continues to have access to water even during times of dry spells. And so I do look forward to attending this conference in the future. It was very informative, and I learned a lot attending those sessions. I also attended another ribbon cutting for Communicare Ole Health. And so they have a new health center at 1313 Travis Boulevard, and this was hosted by the Solano Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And it allows a lot of our vulnerable population that depend on Medicare to have access to health care. And so it increases the access to those in our community who are in most need of those services. And then lastly, last week, because it is graduation season, FSUSD had the highest honor ceremony, and so each student honored there was about 200 or so kids. It was a lot, and we shook all of their hands. They each received 4.0 or above each semester, and so what was special this year was that my nephew Alonzo, who swore me in 2022, was one of the honored students that evening. So it was really, really awesome to be able to be up there and shake not only his hand, but everybody else's, and we're all super, super proud of him. And so congratulations to all the graduates that are going to be graduating or have already graduated this year. And I want to thank Police Chief Dan Marshall, Fire Chief John Sturdy, and Deputy Chief Rich Llewellyn for also being in attendance and representing Fairfield that evening. Oh, and the mayor. She spoke. And that's all. Thank you.
All right, Councilman Doug.
Yeah, I'll be brief, Mayor, because we do a lot of the same things. I too did go to the Allenwood. I was late, however, and yeah, it's a really nice park. And I did check out those bathrooms too, so they're pretty good. Also, we had a round table last Wednesday. Good job, Sam. I think there was 83 people there working on the round table. Homeless round table is at Willow Hall once a month, and I think everybody should come. Just be sure you RSVP so there's a sandwich for you. The more people that are involved in our homeless issue, the more ideas we have to solve it. Also, just real quick, the JPA meeting, Cap Solano, is also tomorrow regarding homeless. Myself and Councilperson Panduro sit on that board, and we're really trying our best to make the city a lot better place for everybody. So the more people involved in that, the better. It's a very, it's a kind of a long meeting, but.
That meeting is Thursday night. Sam wanted me to just let you know.
Yeah, Thursday, sorry.
Okay.
But the more people that do attend that, the better it is for everybody. And that's my report, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilwoman Williams.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, everyone. What's interesting is it looks like our reports are going to be interweaving tonight. So I attended the Bay Delta water tour. It was myself, you mentioned Michael, our water engineer, Public Works Director Sanjay Mishrat, and our city manager, David Gassaway. And so this is a 3-day immersive where we look at, we go to different sites, water infrastructure, fisheries, marshes, all throughout the Bay Area within 3 days. It doesn't say it on the sheet, but it's a 3-day immersive. We are locked in for like 12-hour days. And it's this powerful, actually, Michael, I'm going to read what you wrote for me. The Bay Delta is considered a major source of drinking and irrigation water for California, supplying over 25 million people and over 7 750,000 acres of farmland. The proposed update to the Bay Delta Plan seeks to establish increased flows into the Delta, which directly affects Fairfield's second water source, which is Lake Berryessa. Fairfield also receives water from the Bay Delta through the North Bay Aqueduct, and that intake is located in the Barker Slough. What's also interesting about, just getting this immersive in our watershed was, for me, a special bonus was learning about invasive plant and animal species and how they affect the infrastructure and of each of these systems. So I've learned more about golden mussels than I could ever learn. And when I slow down here in the next few weeks, I will definitely post some type of learning article. So also what ties in to what we've talked about up here is I sit on, and I believe Homelessness Director Samantha Burrows, you're there. I don't know if you sit there, an official board member, I'm not sure. Okay, she says no. But she comes to these meetings, but it's the TAB meeting, which is the Tripartite Advisory Board, and we advise the Solano GPA Board, which you two sit on. So we drafted our priorities that for 2026, 2027, and I just want to give a few of those priorities because, like all of us, what we're doing surrounding homelessness in Fairfield is probably one of the top 3 or 4 things that I'm asked about. And so I just wanted to, tie in what those draft priorities that you all will be hearing about soon, and very quickly, is to reduce barriers to accessing services and the housing for vulnerable people. It's to increase availability and access to emergency assistance and safe interim shelter. And the third is to connect individuals and families with wraparound services to support obtaining and maintaining safe and affordable housing. So those are the top 3 priorities, and I just felt like it was prudent to mention those priorities and have that tied in so that we're all kind of aware of them. And that's the end of my report, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilwoman Williams. Good reports all the way around. And what's nice about it is I don't need to say anything because y'all said it already. So that's awesome. Actually, I just wanted to say one thing. You hear us talk about different things that we go out and we represent Fairfield at, and many times we also have there's staff there that come and represent us as well. We had our fire chief and our police chief. They were there for this is a really big thing, the highest honors ceremony, which was Friday out in Rodriguez High. And, sometimes I forget how much it means to the people we work for that were there. I had a young man come up to me and he said, "Do you remember me?" And I half lied. I did remember that face and his voice. And he was smart and he said, you were, when you first became mayor, you sat for my interview to become the top for Boy Scouts, right? And I said, "Oh, okay." And then I remembered, and I looked back and I have a picture of us together, and I just, it was really neat that he remembered that the people who showed up for his Eagle Scout interview were very, I was proud of him and the other young people who did that. It's not, only 1% of Boy Scouts get that. And he was actually there not because he had 4.0 for 4 years, but his girlfriend did. And so he was very proud of her, and I thought, wow, it was just really, really cool. So it reminds you when we're doing busy work or we have to think of the things that affect each one of you, that it's important to remember those faces. It's important, and that's why we do it. As Councilwoman Panduro said, we shook 200 young people's hands, and they're on their way. They're graduating, and we obviously wish them all the very best. And your nephew, I know your sister was so proud for good reason. So it was beautiful, and we saw a lot of that at Allen Witt. The only time I've seen so many kids running like that is like an Easter egg hunt. When it goes, when we cut the ribbon, it was like, wow, it's like an Easter egg hunt. There, phew, 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 phew. They loved it. They love that park, and they should. It's really cool. Anyway, Mr. City Manager.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Well, I appreciated all the reports tonight talking about water and Allen Witt Playground. I think that is a perfect segue into me highlighting that this week, May 18th to 24th, is National Public Works Week.
Yes.
And I was honored to go out, and I appreciate the Public Works Department inviting me to their Public Works employee barbecue today over at the Courtyard. It was a wonderful afternoon to spend with them. And too often, Public Works are those unsung heroes. So who built that playground? Well, the engineering team designed it, and then the inspection team oversaw its construction to make sure it was done to plans and safely, and certainly all the things about water. Vice Mayor Bertani, I think our water folks and fire department in collaboration would be happy to come in and talk about many of the things that you were highlighting that you learned down at the Aqua Conference. And I am proud to say we already do or meet the standards on most everything that you said. So I'll work with the mayor. We'll find a time for them to come back and give a presentation on that. But all of that would not be possible without the folks behind the scenes, more often than not, our Public Works team. So I would just like if we could all join in a round of applause in thanking our Public Works team.
Yes.
And there's no changes to the agenda, Mayor. That's my
All right.
report.
And Mr. City Attorney.
Thank you. I have one item to report out of closed session from a couple weeks ago in the matter of the workers' compensation claim by Christopher Bell. Workers' comp claim number FFL 2100105. The Workers' Comp Appeal Board approved the settlement. The full amount of the settlement can be found on the Workers' Compensation Appeals Board website. Thank you.
Thank you. And Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to let everyone know there are 3 seats open on our Measure P Oversight Committee. The deadline to apply is Friday, July 11th, and the Oversight Committee monitors the revenues collected by the Measure P transaction and use tax that I think passed the first time in 2013. And the committee only meets 4 times a year, so it's not a huge commitment. And then Planning Commission, we have 1 seat open, and the deadline to apply for that is Friday, June 13th. You can get any of these applications, city clerk at fairfield.ca.gov. And then lastly, Landscape Oversight Committee, 1 seat is open for District 2. And then Youth Commission, we're always accepting Youth Commission applications. It's just kind of an ongoing thing because as kids graduate, they're no longer usually on the commission. So, and I think that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll turn to presentations then, Madam Clerk.
Okay, presentation 1, proclamation declaring Asian and Pacific Islander Month, presented by Councilmember Sandhu, and is President Carol Rosario Ormiga here from PhilAm? Oh, here, Jacob Francisco, the Vice President's here.
Oh, very nice.
Thank you, Jacob.
I'd like to call our chairman and our advisor also.
Good evening. Good evening, everybody. How are you? Thank you for coming this evening. Jacob, it's good to see you. You'll do. I'm just kidding. Whereas, in 1977, Congress introduced a resolution to proclaim the first 10 days of May as Asian Pacific Heritage Week, a celebration of Asians and Pacific Islanders in the United States. And whereas, in 1990, President George H.W. Bush signed a bill passed by Congress to expand Asian Pacific heritage from a week to a month-long celebration. And in May 1992, the month was permanently designated as Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. And whereas, the month of May was chosen to commemorate the immigration of the first Japanese to the United States on May 7, 1843, and to make the anniversary of the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad in 1869, as the majority of workers who laid the tracks were Chinese immigrants. And whereas the history and cultures of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders are inextricably tied to the story of the United States of America, and whereas we acknowledge these Americans for their significant contributions to education, government, industry, commerce, agriculture, science, literature, and the arts. And whereas there are approximately 24 million Asian Americans or Pacific Islanders living in the United States, with 1/4 of those living in California, and we acknowledge the historical and cultural contributions of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders in the development of the state of California. And whereas in Fairfield, over 17% of the population identifies Asian, Filipino, or Pacific Islander, and whereas the Asian American and Pacific Islander community is a rich and diverse population composed of nearly 45 distinct ethnicities and over 100 language dialects. Now, therefore, I, Catherine Moy, Mayor of the City of Fairfield, do hereby proclaim the month of May as Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, and I encourage citizens to learn about the significant contributions that these Americans have made to our great nation and our city. Thank you.
I do want to get a photo.
Say a couple words. Thank you, Mayor Moy, City Council members. My name is Jacob Francisco, Vice President of the Filipino American Community of Fairfield, Sassoon, Vacaville. Some of you might know that we have a house located at 532 Jackson Street. That's where we meet. We would love to have you join as honorary members, support our programs. We do have a scholarship program for our membership. And you know, we have had a long history in Fairfield. I believe we were here. You started in 1956. It's 1956, way before I was here. But I do greatly appreciate the recognition this month, and hope to see you out at a couple AAPI events throughout the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
And our next presentation is the Fairfield Community Services Foundation, and the presentation is going to be by Jeremy Prophet, Police Support Manager, and our former City Manager, Sean Quinn.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council and the community of Fairfield. So I am blessed here tonight with retired City Manager Sean Quinn to highlight the foundation's work in our great community. Our board is a diverse group of 12 members made up of past city employees, current city employees, and many community members and business partners. So it's a wonderful organization. All proceeds and time spent goes back to Fairfield. So You'll see a reoccurring theme. Everything is about building Fairfield, making them stronger, building stronger communities together. The Fairfield Foundation has been here for about 31 years. Of that time, I've been blessed with collaborating with them for 10 years and serving on the board 5, and Sean 15. The founding father as well is retired Parks and Rec Director John DiLorenzo. So he has been around and giving back to the community for years. We've raised and invested about $3 million in our community. We're an all-volunteer board. 100% of what we raise and invest in this community goes back to the community. A few awards that we've received. Kind of the history, we started about 25 years ago with a signature program in the Parks and Recreation Department, sponsoring and supporting the Fun on the Run program that we've all come to love and support our community. Provided critical support during the pandemic for youth, seniors, and families. Purchased meals and delivered meals to our low income, our seniors as well. Purchased food through Paradise Valley Estates. Provided St. Mark's food pantry. As you know, in today's times, food pantries, we can never have enough. I think every church, every organization gives out weekly food pantries, and it's still not enough food for our communities. We've also worked with the Solano Shelter and provided, I think we've completed 3 programs, Sean? 3 programs to revitalize the shelter, whether that's landscaping, infrastructure improvements, and thanks to key partners such as working with Travis Air Force Base, the Travis Credit Union. One of our staple programs that is continuing to evolve is our back to school backpack giveaway and food giveaway. Last year we gave out 1,072 backpacks. We are blessed to partner with Bethel Community Church. As you know, the east side of town on Travis or East Tabor is kind of the hub and center of our lower income. So we are blessed to partner with the community church, Bethel Community Church. They've been a longstanding partner with us. 690 backpacks and school supplies and 382 bags were purchased. 382 bags of food was given out. Thanks to the Fairfield Lions Club, provided 34 eye exams. Torrey University provided Tdap vaccinations. What has come to advance, as many of you have seen the backpack giveaways, we're looking at turning and focusing on now shoes. So all of us have gone to school at one point in time, whether it's your clothes, shoes, that really gives our youth that confidence at school. It's something as simple as having a nice pair of shoes or shoes that fit. So we have a program that we're starting it called Sneakers for Success, and that's partnering with the Fairfield Sassoon Unified School District Family Resource Center, and they identify families in need. This year we're going to start off with about 30 or 300 pairs of shoes, and we like to grow that each year. But as any of you have been involved in shoe process and a volunteer and getting those out, there's so much that goes behind the scenes, whether that's size, getting the families, making sure those families that are in need. And we really don't want to duplicate the services, and we want to spread the love. We want to make sure all walks of life in our community that need these services get those. There's been a lot of comments and questions about these large events that we put together. Are we serving the Fairfield community? So this is a way to make sure, working with the school district, that the families in need in Fairfield are getting those services. And we're not helping outside of our area because we want to really connect with Fairfield. We also have another program that we're working on shoes, and that's through the school district as well, and getting those that are unhoused shoes as well. And unhoused is not just not having a real place to stay, but that's couch surfing as well. Families that bounce from place to place to place. So it's important to get those services to them. Another amazing event that I've had the luxury of being part of for about 10 years now is the 12th annual Toy and Coat Drive we just had last Christmas. We gave 1,442 children new toys and warm coats. What we noticed over the years is people are coming to get toys, is they're showing up with no jackets, and it's December, no shoes, shorts. So we brought the coats on board, and we're blessed to partner with many local businesses such as Macy's and other boards and foundations and nonprofits to continue to grow this. We are also looking at not only the drive-through event, but we're partnering in neighborhoods such as Crowley Lane, Dana Drive, and a few others to go into those neighborhoods and making sure those neighborhoods are getting resources and services as well. So going to the neighborhoods, the pandemic shifted us a little bit. We had to figure out how to continue services, leaving the neighborhoods, and now we're trying to get back in those neighborhoods. We also have a bike program. We work with Natalie Hicks, the landfill, and a few other groups that refurbish or get new bikes and get bikes to children in need. Inspirational Sports is another amazing program that connects youth that don't have the opportunities, and I've had the privilege on going on a few of these that have never been to a sporting event, have never in their life, 15, 16-year-olds, middle school age, the first time they've ever showed up was the first time they've ever seen a sporting event. What is amazing about this program is they provide the transportation, they provide a meal, they get a shirt, they get to go out on the field, out on the basketball court or so forth, and provide a unique experience that most of our youth don't get to explore outside of Fairfield. We're taking them to large cities and connecting with them. And then they're paired with chaperones that are usually police, fire, or other services that build a relationship and show mentorship. So it's a really wonderful program. Again, partnered with the school district. And with that, I'll hand it over to Sean Quinn.
Thank you, Jeremy. It's nice to see everybody here tonight. I'll continue with the updates from last year. We also have run a scholarship program. We've been doing that for a number of years. And last year we gave out $14,500 in scholarships, but we're increasing that now. We're going to go to 10 scholarships and give out $20,000 a year to people. And we've named a number of the programs after different people. Most of you know Muffy Jordan. We have a scholarship named after her. And this year we were privileged to have her two children help us with the scholarship selection, so that was really nice. Club Chaos is another program we support. We've been doing that for about 4 years now. Club Chaos is a program for special needs children. It's a camp at Allenwood Aquatic Center. Most of the kids get scholarships to go to that, but there's some that fall through the cracks, and so we provide funding for those people who fall through the cracks, as well as those that can't afford to pay for the registration on it. And it's been a very successful partnership with Club Chaos on that program. We also partnered with your Parks and Recreation Department on a very fun event, a new event called Neon Swim Night at the Aquatic Center. And they had about 130 people there. There was DJs, food trucks, and neon vibes. It was a really nice event, and we were the sole sponsor of that, so we were really pleased to be a sponsor of that. Jeremy already talked a little about St. Mark's, but I want to talk a little bit more about that partnership. This partnership started with St. Mark's and their food pantry during the pandemic. And we were fortunate enough to be awarded community development block grant funds by the city of Fairfield. And so we started providing food in there. One of the things we noticed when we started providing food is they were serving families out of there with refrigerators that were 20 and 30 years old and freezers, really inefficient. And so what we've done is we have actually bought them all new commercial freezers and refrigerators for their facility there. And we bought them through our partnership with Paradise Valley Estates, so we get them at a wholesale cost. We provide chicken, beef, pork, proteins to them. They get the rest of the food from businesses as well as the food bank, but we provide them with the proteins. And we also buy those through Paradise Valley Estates to get a discount on there. And they serve about 1,000 individuals a week. And we're really pleased with that partnership at St. Mark's. It's just a great partnership. And if you haven't been there recently, they've changed their whole food pantry, whereas now you go in and instead of them giving you a bag and you leave, you can go in and shop, and you can pick what you want. And it's just really changed. One of the things they found is that people are not dropping food off in the parking lot when they're leaving because now they get to pick what they want. And so it's worked out really now. But it's also, you feel like you're shopping. It gives you a little more dignity when you're getting the food. So that's been a great partnership. We see that continuing. We also do senior meals at the Adult Recreation Center. We do it twice a year. Last year we did a traditional Santa Maria barbecue. For those of you who remember me from a long time ago, I came from that area, so I actually cooked 250 pieces of chicken for that event on our barbecue. And so we had 100 seniors there. And then in this fall, we do a Thanksgiving dinner, and I'll serve 75 seniors at that. One of the things we found is that as it gets later in the year, the seniors don't like coming out as night, so we've actually switched to doing lunches now. And what we do is there's a small charge for the for the meal, and then we do a raffle. The money that's raised off of that, we leave it at the Adult Recreation Center for them to use. This is a event that I had the privilege of being involved last year that really kind of one of those life-changing events that you go to. Sergeant Bender for the Fairfield Police Department used to be a school resource officer at Grange, and he started a program at Grange with the school of going out and providing Thanksgiving meals to a few families in need. And I think he started off with 5 families. We provided $3,500 last year so we could actually support 35 families. And so on Thanksgiving morning at about 6 o'clock in the morning, we all gathered at Grange and then went over to Rayleigh's where the meals were cooked. And then we divided up into teams and went out and delivered these meals to these families. In addition to giving them food, we also handed out 81 brand new coats to the kids at the houses we went to. This event is really growing. We expect it to grow again next year. If you have a chance on Thanksgiving morning to do it, it's an emotional event. But one of the things we've noticed in going into these apartments, mostly over near Grange, is that the people don't have a lot of furniture in their facilities. And so we're working with Habitat for Humanity right now, and they have just got furniture from Silverado Country Club because they're redoing their events. And so we're going to be providing some of that furniture to these families at Grange, and we're going to be working on that this summer. Special events, I think most of you probably attended some of these. Vine to Table is an event we do in the fall under the Arch. This year will be the 100th anniversary of the Arch, so we're excited about having it down there. We do an event where we take local chefs, prepare a course, and we pair it with Suisun Valley wines. And it's been a very successful event. We have about 200 people come to it. It's our largest fundraiser that we do. And just to brag on that, the food up there was cooked by my son. So in the picture, so that was nice. This year, you can see the wineries up there we have a lot of wineries from Suisun Valley participated, and we had 6 restaurants that provided courses of food. We also do a chocolate and vine event in February each year. It's held at the barn in Green Valley. This is a fundraiser that's solely for Inspiration Sports, which is a program Jeremy talked about. The neat thing about this is we get to feature some high schools, and so the food is actually prepared by the culinary program at Fairfield High School. These students not only knock themselves out preparing the food, but they are so well behaved and so cordial in delivering the food. It's just a great showcase of these students and what they can do. The culinary program at Fairfield High School is amazing, and the equipment they have in there is fantastic. It's top of the notch in terms of the program. We also have flower arrangements because we do it typically before Valentine's Day, and so we have flower arrangements prepared by Rodriguez High School, FFA program, and they sell those. And then Solano Winds provides the flute music. We have about 150 people that attend that event. In fact, we're limited to 150 people. We have an event coming up on May 29th, just next week, which is Pairing Hope, which is a fundraiser for our shoe program that Jeremy talked about. And this is going to be a winemaker dinner at Rancho Solano at Bella Verde, and Tolina's Winery is providing the wine. So it's going to be a nice event there. We could not do what we do without partnerships. As Jeremy said from the very beginning, we're all volunteers, and there's not very many of us. And so how do we get it done? We partner with people. One of our biggest partnerships is with the City of Fairfield. We have the various departments, City Manager's Office, Public Works, Police, Fire. They all come out, Parks and Recreation, and they help us through our different events. But you can see all the other volunteers we have through the community. First Northern Bank last year turned out, I think, 30 volunteers for Vine to Table for us to help serve. And this is our sponsors who provide funding to us. So I want to just shout out to them. You can see we have quite a few sponsors that, including our city attorney's firm. Thank you very much. And with that, we'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions or comments? Yes, Councilwoman?
I just want to say thank you. The fact that you make all these lifts on a volunteer basis. You know, I knew some of the things you did, but I didn't realize how comprehensive it was. So thank you very much for all you do.
Thank you.
Councilman Sandu?
I was just going to say my career in service is still new, but from what I do know, you've been serving the city of Fairfield for quite some time now, and you've continued to. And I just think that's a testament, and it really just leading by example, and I take a lot from that. I know you've given a lot to the city in an official capacity, and now in an unofficial capacity. And I've had the honor to attend a few of the events that the foundation has done in my short time, and they're amazing. And I just hope you guys can continue it, and we'd love to support. I'd love to support in any way I can. So just thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, Madam Vice Mayor.
And of course, I just want to say thank you, Sean, for continuing to be a beacon of light and hope in the city. And ladies and gentlemen, this is only a fraction of the volunteer work and the top tier programming that Sean helps to facilitate throughout our city. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
You're welcome.
And in fact, he's going to be cleaning my my truck first thing in the morning. He does.
7 o'clock, right?
Yes, at 7 o'clock I'll be there. Thanks, Sean. Thanks for everything. And Jeremy and everybody else who works with you.
Yeah, we have a great board, so thank you.
I was gonna just add to that, just thank you and the board, because I know several of them, and they all work full-time jobs, and they still commit so many hours to this community, so thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Thank you. Good to see you, Sean.
And so now we'll turn to public comments, Madam Clerk.
Public comments. Persons wishing to address the City Council on subjects not on the agenda but within the jurisdiction of the council may do so at this time. The council cannot discuss or take action on matters not on the agenda for this meeting, but council members may briefly respond to statements made or questions raised by the public, ask for clarification from staff, refer the matter to staff, request staff to report back to the council at a subsequent meeting, or place the matter on a future agenda. To speak on an agenda item, please use the raise your hand feature or press *9 on your phone if you're online. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes per item, as determined by the mayor. And for public comment, I just have one speaker card. Rodney Smith.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members, general public. A special thanks to the chief for being here. I'm surprised. I'm glad that he's here. My report isn't as exciting as all of the other wonderful reports that I've heard this evening. My report goes back to 72 hours ago over on East Tabor in the city of Fairfield as I'm walking down the street, and a police officer, a city employee, decides that he's going to jump out of his vehicle and tell me to sit down on the ground. No apparent reason, no articulable crime or anything alleged. So he wants me to sit on the ground. Officer, why? What did I do? I didn't do anything. He pulls out his taser. On top of that, he calls for backup. I haven't violated any laws or did anything. I have a right to walk around this city freely, whether I'm black or brown, like other people. So this officer calls 10 other officers. Check the call log. We're going to litigate this. This is a violation. And what's so bad about it, I'm walking down the street. They impound my vehicle. They arrested me and kept me in the car for 45 minutes while they waited for a K-9 unit to come and run around my car that's parked across the street that I was not even driving. They just know it's my car. They know my face. They know the vehicle. So I'm in the back of the car 45 minutes while the K-9s go around the car twice looking for a hit. I wasn't even operating the vehicle. Oh, this is Sunday. I go to jail. I get out of jail. My car is gone. I go to get my car, it's gone. Guess what? Finds out Monday morning, the Fairfield Police Department has my vehicle, saying that I was driving the vehicle, and they had this is a 180 CH, attorneys know, a CHP 180 form. When officers in the state of California impound or tow cars, they have to articulate the reason for the stop, the authority for the violation, the driver's name, and if the driver was arrested. Fairfield Police Department, they don't have to put any of that. They just took my vehicle with no authority, claiming that I was operating the vehicle. You have to look at Vehicle Code 22. We're going to litigate this. I'm just giving you fair warning right now. Last time I was here, I told you about a case. We're in litigation about that now in civil court. This is another case. I would like for some intervention. I'm more than happy. I just don't want to have to walk around this city, if I'm walking around and be harassed by police officers because of the color of my skin. I didn't violate any laws. Let me tell you what they did. So the
You have 15 seconds.
Oh, goodness. If that's all right, I can put it in the morning. I'm just putting you all on notice. Captain, Chief, all of you, we're going to litigate this issue, and this policy, this panel is going to be liable. You can do that, Madam Mayor, if you choose to, but I'm going to hold this council and this
Your time is up, sir.
responsible for all those 4th Amendment, 14th Amendment, all those violations.
Right, your time is up, sir.
You think you're going to trample on my rights and think it's okay?
Sir,
It's not
your
gonna
time
happen.
is up.
Thank you very much. See, we can talk about it, choose to, or we can just get it into litigation. Yeah, no, I'm not leaving, I'm sitting down. What are you talking about?
We have any other public speakers?
Did anyone else wish to speak about public comment?
All right, then.
There are no hands raised online.
Okay, very good. We will move on to the PVMMD consent calendar notice.
Okay, 7:10. I'm just noting the time, sorry.
I'm sorry, sir?
Right, okay.
Oh, sorry, Madam Mayor. Did you say something to me?
Yes, I did.
What did you say to me?
You know that we're over in court June the 2nd?
You're in court, yeah. I'll see you in court.
I know, I see you in court.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm just giving you fair warning a second time.
Sir,
We have another case.
Thank you.
this enough. He'll see you at court.
I apologize, Madam Mayor.
No, that's quite all right. Don't disrupt this meeting, sir, please.
Madam Mayor, I have not disrupted the meeting because I'm voicing my opinion. I'm frustrated about the situation.
Sir, you've had 3 minutes like everybody else who speaks.
I'll be back on that. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I
Thank you.
apologize if I,
No, thank you, sir.
thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to read the consent calendar statement. All matters listed on the consent calendar are to be approved with one motion unless a member of the board or the public requests that separate action be taken on a specific item. And the PVMMD item is consent.
Madam Mayor, I had a question on one item on consent.
Okay,
Would you like it pulled or just for me to
Yes.
ask right now? Item N3, November 3.
November 3, okay.
Wait, we're on.
We're on PVMMD.
We're on
Oh, we're still-
PVMMD consent. There's
Sorry,
two there's two separate consent calendars. This is
Right.
the Paradise Valley one.
Sorry about that.
No,
Okay.
that's quite all right.
Okay.
Any,
I don't have any, oh, wait, I do have one request to speak.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Theta Peck. Sorry, Theta.
hi, Theta.
Good evening. I requested the consent item to be pulled to discuss some concerns. Rick and I met with Public Works in April to discuss the 25-26 budget. Starting in 25-26, an arbitrary CPI increase was added to the reserve fund limit. While this was said to be pulled, it is reflected on the proposed budget. Having it on the budget presents the impression that the reserve limit should be increased each year. Since it has not been increased, since it is not to be increased, it looks like something that could be applied, but is not, helps the taxpayers. The 2022 reserve study determined that $1.5 million limit was enough. This limit was based on a formula. Since no variables have changed in the formula per Public Works, there is no need to apply a CPI to the reserve fund limit in an actual usage or on paper. Even if the CPI were to be added, it would be changing the methodology of the reserve of the fee assessment. Separately, I would like to know the authority in which the CPI is applied to the reserve each year. And what you're doing, or what you did to the assessment fee by increasing it by the CPI each year, whether or not it was needed, you're now doing to the reserve without a vote. Currently, the reserve fund has an overage of nearly $92,000, which is, where's the credit that Public Works stated would be incorporated into the budget? This was stated last year. Instead of giving us a credit, the increase of the reserve by the CPI that is not actually being applied makes it look like the budget is using the excess reserve when in fact it is not. The reserve limit is being manipulated in order to not provide that credit. I'm asking for a certain percentage of the budget or fixed number, such as 25% or $25,000, to be applied as a credit for the next few years until the reserve fund is down to the predetermined limit. Again, I'm asking to provide anyone on the board, particularly those that are newer, a short overview of the GAD, and to get the residents' perspective of issues and current issues that we still have. While you're on this board, you do not represent your city council districts. You represent the residents of the GAD board, and you're not doing it. Nobody's asking questions, nobody's wanting to have more information to get the full picture. We're wanting to give you this information, but no one's taken us up on it except Pam. The only thing else is there was a $35,000 amount on special
You have
projects
10
line,
seconds.
and it was removed. This was 25% of the budget, and it got removed because it didn't apply to anything. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did anyone else wish to speak on this matter?
Yes.
Theta, thank you for that information. So can you step back to the mic? Can I ask her a couple clarifying questions, please?
Yes.
So the CPI increase that you mentioned, is that mandatory by some law or?
It is not in any of the foundational or subsequent approved documents. That's why I'm asking for the authority as to which and why it's being applied. I think it's my personal opinion is it's being applied in order to look like the reserve should be at a higher amount than it is, hence the $50-some-odd-thousand deficit.
Okay.
And that deficit is coming out of the reserve. I don't think it's ever going to be applied. It's a manipulation, like a bait and switch. Here, this is what we can do, but we're really not going to do it in order so that we don't get credit back of the overages that is above that 1.57 million.
So the CPI index is applied annually, but there's no authority to do that.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, and then the reserve, what is the contracted or required reserve amount?
The 2022 reserve study provided, based on the formula at that time, 1.57 million, which was a decrease of 1.7 million because one of the variables changed.
Okay, so the reserve amount is 1.5 million?
1.57 million.
1.57 million is the amount that needs to be kept in the reserve. What is the balance on the reserve?
1,600,000. The projected for this, at the end of this fiscal year, which is June 30th, it's projected to be 1,664,782. In fiscal year 25-26, the projection is 1,661,924, a decrease of almost $3,000.
So what would you consider to be a responsive, I don't know, an adequate response to your concerns? What do you need?
First off, take any indication for increasing the target fund balance and to completely wipe it, have it as it is, has a factual number, and not increase it or imply that there should be an increase every year. It's the CPI. Because at some point, if the CPI were to be, if it was said that we can raise it by whatever the CPI is, and we really want that, that's the new limit. So then we need to fund to reach that limit. Instead of some people who are paying $389 for the next fiscal year,
Okay.
they're going to be paying nearly $1,400.
Okay. So, Mr. City,
Let's hear from staff.
okay.
Yeah, Thank you, Cindy. You can sit down.
Sure. I'd like to go ahead and first address the CPI issue. So the CPI was authorized by the laws that govern the GAD, which is in the Public Resource Code, and I believe the 1972 Landscaping and Lighting Act also applies, but definitely Proposition 218 applies to this district, which authorizes a CPI, an automatic CPI, to the assessments each year without requiring another Prop 218 vote. This CPI was indicated in the original 2010 engineers report that formed the district, and again in the 2022 engineers report that was adopted with a new methodology based on new factors of the district. So the CPI applies not only to the maximum assessment rates, which, as I think Ms. Peck pointed out, we haven't in the past few years haven't charged the max rates. However, as a district, we increase the max rates, the max possible rates by the CPI each year, just to make sure that we can maintain buying power each year, should we need that funding in any particular year. Now, the CPI to the fund balance. Ms. Peck is correct. We did do a fund balance reserve study in 2018 and again in 2022. And in the 2022, in both studies, the target reserve fund balance, which was 1.8 in 2018 and lowered to 1.57 in 2022, that was referenced in 2022, 2023 dollars. So again, the CPI applies to that fund balance amount so that the district can maintain buying power throughout the year, so that if we get 10, 15 years down the road, we're not stuck at, with having 2022 funding when we're paying 2033 prices, for example.
And that's by law?
Well, it's not required by law to be responsive to you. It's not required by law. However, it is prudent, and it's also recommended by our geotechnical consultant, who we hired to assist us with developing this report. They also help us with the day-to-day management of this district, monitor all the geological hazards, and help us with the budget and assessment rates. I'd like to also just point out that this district is its own separate entity, so it is separate from the city. So any liability or any repairs or any maintenance that needs to happen in this district, it's coming from this district. So that's what this is. This district is set up a little bit differently than maybe, say, our landscaping and lighting maintenance districts or our CFDs, because it's acting as its own sort of insurance policy for any sort of disastrous events that might happen in this area. This district, because it is its own entity, can take out loans and bonds the same way any other municipality or any other entity can. However, the repayment of those bonds is coming out of their assessment rates, and those assessment rates are limited to the Prop 218 amounts, to the levels that was approved in 2010, those Prop 218 amounts in 2010. So let's say they do need to take out $1 million loan to go ahead and take care of repairs or maybe a bond. How they make that bond payment each year comes out of their assessments. And if that means they can't perform the regular maintenance and repairs, throughout the year so that they can make the bond payment, you see what I'm saying? It's kind of like playing, checkers or chess with the funding that's coming in. So we have looked at that option, but that's why these GADs, it is recommended by these geotechnical engineers to have a fund balance, and a fund balance sufficient enough to address any catastrophic sort of events in these areas.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right, then I will entertain a motion to go ahead and approve the consent calendar.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay. That was unanimous then. So now we are going to reconvene to the city council.
Okay, and I'll read the statement for the regular consent calendar.
Okay.
And Councilmember Sandhu, which item did you want to pull?
November 3.
And 3? Okay. All matters listed on the consent calendar are to be approved with one motion unless a member of the city council or the public requests that separate action be taken on a specific item. I don't have any speaker cards for the regular consent calendar. Did anyone wish to speak on regular consent? Okay, so should I read item N3 then?
Yeah, I think Councilmember Sandhu requested for that item to be pulled.
Okay. Resolution 2025-74, fiscal year 2025 to 2026, Senate Bill 1, project list, incorporating a list of projects funded by Senate Bill 1, the Road Repair and Accountability Act, for fiscal year 2025 to 2026. The contact I have is David Vong. I don't think he's here. I'm just seeing who wants to. Our Assistant Public Works Director, Ryan Panganiban, will
Madam Clerk,
address it.
I'm going to be leaving. I'm not feeling well. And so the Vice Mayor will take over from here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Hope you feel better.
Thank you very much. It wasn't you, man.
Councilmember Sandhu, do you want to ask your question
Yeah.
to Ryan?
Sure, yeah, thank you. Just had a couple of questions on the project list. Can funding from the state only go to the projects on this project list? Or is this just a subset and they could go to any project on the capital improvement list?
So annually, the state requires us to adopt this list, and this is currently what we have programmed in our capital projects to perform. If the council is interested, we have a presentation coming up that we're going to speak more about our capital improvement program and what we have on the portfolio coming up in the next 5 years. But in this upcoming fiscal year, from July 1st of this year till June of 26, this is what we're planning on spending the funding for.
Can you walk me through the process you undertook to come up with this list?
Sure. So every 2 years, the city does a condition assessment. Right now, our pavement condition index is about 64. We're middle of the pack if you look at all of the cities within the Solano County as it relates to the pavement condition index. So what that pavement condition index refers to is the amount of potholes, the amount of stress and cracking that's within your city's network and your transportation asset. Our roadway system is the city's one of the most expensive pieces of infrastructure. It's about $1.3 billion, $1.3 billion. If we were to replace all of the roads that's in the city of Fairfield, we have about 740 lane miles. So we prioritize spending the limited amount of funding that we have for maintenance on arterials and collector roads, and those are the highest traveled roads in the city of Fairfield.
Got it, thank you. One other question. How would it be fair to categorize, I mean, in this instance, Markley Lane as a collector road?
So Markley Lane is an obligation of, go. So Markley Lane is the extension of Markley Lane from Peabody to its Viking Lane. That's an obligation that we've identified within the train station specific plan of the planning area, so the developer is obligated to do that. We are progressing, moving forward with the design. We do have proposals in hand that we're reviewing. So while we can program funding to the construction of that, we would deprioritize maintenance that we would need to complete on, Texas Street or West Texas, major arterials in the city, and further deteriorate those roads that need that maintenance.
Sure, I get that, and thank you. The reason I brought this one up specifically was, for example, like I'm looking at the expansion of Manual Campus, right, which has already gone from 0 to 1 to some degree. Like, at least from my perspective, just where I'm thinking right now, like I would almost, just from my personal opinion, I would prioritize more to somehow complete Markley Lane first instead of widening something that's already been done to some degree. Just from a prioritization list, that's why I was asking the question.
So the cost that we have that's included on Manuel Campos would be, as we look at widening Manuel Campos from 2 to 4, that existing roadway, we want to make sure that when that construction is completed, it's 4 lanes, it's brand-new pavement. So that it'd be just the city's fair contribution, not the complete widening improvements.
Got it. Are there any development projects around Manual Campus that would also be going into funding that, or would that completely be city internal budget to do that?
Sorry, I was hitting mute while you're, so yes, there's going to be northeast specific fees and citywide AB 1600 that's going to go towards completing that.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, I don't have any speaker cards for any of the other items on consent, but we do need to vote on the item that Councilmember Sandu pulled separately.
Any speakers for this item? Any speakers for this item?
Do we have any speakers for this item?
No, we don't.
I move.
Did anyone wish to speak on it? Sorry.
Okay, so this motion for approval of the consent calendar will include the matter that was pulled?
No, I would take this matter first, finish this matter, then go back to the consent calendar and get a separate motion for consent.
Okay. So,
This is N3,
Yes.
Resolution 2025-74.
I'll entertain a motion to approve that.
So moved.
Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. And,
Thank you.
sure. And now I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar in its entirety.
So moved.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Okay, we move on to new business. 01, Resolution 2025-76, Contract Amendment for Emergency Medical Services, Request for Proposal, Response, and authorizing an update to the fiscal year 2024 to 2025 budget, authorizing the city manager to execute Amendment Number 2 of the Professional Services Agreement with AP Triton LLC to expand scope to include requests for proposal response. And our presenter is Rich Llewellyn, our Deputy Fire Chief.
Good evening, Council and Vice Mayor.
Good evening.
We don't have a presentation for this item, but are here to speak to the contract and the proposed amendment.
Very well. Let's proceed.
So this proposed amendment to the contract with AP Triton would extend the contract to allow us to work with them to develop a response to the request for proposal that we're anticipating from Solano County with respect to the ambulance services. We anticipated that this would come out last year. It hasn't come out yet. The RFP is now anticipated sometime later this spring, potentially within the next 2 weeks to 1 month. AP Triton is a well-known player, if you will, in this arena and has developed several successful RFP responses for agencies such as Contra Costa County and Sonoma County. So they are well-known in the area and well-versed with these particular contracts or proposals.
Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk, do we have any public speakers on this item?
I don't have any speaker cards. Did anyone wish to speak on this item? No hands raised online.
Okay, seeing none. Colleagues, any questions or comments? No questions or comments. Okay, then I will entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2025-76.
And I will second that.
All right.
I'll motion it.
I'm sorry,
We get it.
Vice Mayor, did you make the motion and
That's what I thought.
and Doug Carr second?
Councilman Sandu moved it.
Oh,
Councilmember Carr seconded it. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
okay, the next item. 02, fiscal year 2026 to 2030 5-year capital improvement plan draft, discussion and direction regarding the fiscal year 2026 to 2030 5-year capital improvement plan draft. And our presenter is Jason Riley, Assistant City Engineer.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. My name is Jason Riley. I'm the Assistant City Engineer for the Public Works Department. Tonight, I'm honored, continuing the Public Works theme for the week, to present the City of Fairfield Draft 5-Year CIP Plan, our Capital Improvement Plan. So before we dive into the draft document, sorry about that. I'm sorry about that. Do you want me to start over, or are you good?
Sure, go ahead and start over.
Okay. So good evening, Madam Vice Mayor and Council. I'm Jason Riley, Assistant City Engineer, Public Works Department. Tonight, I'm honored to continue the Public Works theme of the week and present the City of Fairfield Draft 5-Year Capital Improvement Program. So before we dive into the draft document, I wanted to provide a brief overview of what the Capital Improvement Program is, and then the process that we use to develop the Capital Improvement Plan. So you see here on the screen the three, so you have the Capital Improvement Program, which is the continuous overall planning process that we use to identify and track the capital improvement projects. And that includes the prioritization, the funding, the resourcing, and the scheduling of the projects. That program is divided into two subcomponents. That's the Capital Improvement Plan and the capital budget. So the Capital Improvement Plan is a 5-year window within the program where those projects in those 5 years have a more refined scope, preliminary cost estimates, and funding identified. The capital budget represents the first 2 years of the capital plan. And then that capital budget is presented to the City Council for adoption with the biennial citywide budget. So if you think about this on a timeline, the program is this entire timeline. It includes all of our past projects that have been completed, and then all of the future projects, the arrow to the right, that will be eventually worked their way into the 5-year window. The red box is the 5-year window, which represents our capital improvement plan. And then the green shaded first 2 years is our capital budget. So our next capital budget that we're working on is for the fiscal years 26 and 27. So what is a capital improvement project? So that's any project that increases the value of one or more city-owned assets. That can include new construction, renovation, replacement, expansion, significant maintenance, all different types of projects. And they typically exceed $60,000 in value. We administer those projects using the California Public Contract Code as well as the California Uniform Public Construction Cost Accounting, which is CUPCA. This is the life cycle of a project. All projects, depending on their complexities, some fall into all these categories, some only hit 2 of these categories, but this is the typical life cycle for a capital project. The first is a project development, where we're scoping out the project. The need's been identified. The funding is we're working on funding identification, and then we're programming into this 5-year capital improvement plan. Next, the project, once it's in that plan, it goes through conceptual design, different design alternatives. We start looking at environmental impacts and environmental documentation and any land that would need to be acquired for the project. The third phase is the design bid and award. That's where we complete the final design, we award the project, or advertise the project, award the project, and execute a construction contract. And then finally to construction. And this is the phase where the public actually sees the fruits of the labor, where the project is actually being constructed. That includes contract management, quality assurance and inspection, and then project acceptance by this council. So projects can often span multiple years, and typically the budget for design in 1 year and then construction in another year. So that's why you'll see as you look through the document, you'll have funding in 1 year that's typically for design, and then the following year or 2 years would be for construction. There are several guiding documents that we use to identify and determine consistency of our projects with the city's policies and goals. We have the general plan, specific plans like the Heart of Fairfield and Northeast Fairfield specific plan. We have master plans, the Parks Master Plan and the Facilities Master Plans, which we're currently working on. the strategic plans for IT, fire, and police, regional transportation plans, and then, of course, city council goals. So our capital improvement projects are broken into major general categories: parks, public buildings, sewer, streets, transit, water, and then we also have IT on that list, and golf. So 2 years ago, you might recall, prior to the last 5-year capital plan, Public Works requested from each department an unconstrained list of projects that have been identified for potential capital needs, project needs. That request resulted in more than 350 projects, totaling more than $550 million. We are not able, obviously, to construct $550 million worth of projects in a 5-year period. However, that exercise allowed us to develop a large database of potential capital projects that we can then plan, prioritize, and then use that list to provide potential projects for grant funding. So every 2 years, we review the 5-year capital improvement plan in preparation for adoption of the capital budget. We know that we began this current review in November of 2024 by meeting with all of the departments to discuss the project status, needs, and prioritization. Public Works then worked with the departments and finance to identify funding for those associated with those projects. And we concurrently reviewed availability of staff resources to deliver the projects. The resulting list of projects and funding were used to develop the draft 5-year capital plan that's before you tonight. Any modifications, any questions, comments we get feedback tonight will be worked into the final document when the capital budget is presented to the council for consideration on June 16th. So just to highlight some of our accomplishments over the last 2 years, we completed 24 projects. One project you won't see on this list is the Allen Witt Phase 3. That's because it's still wrapping up. Technically, it's open to the public. We're still wrapping up, hasn't been accepted by council. So that'll be our 25th project of the year. It's pretty good delivery. For fiscal year 24 and 25, projects that are currently in some stage of design. That could include planning. That could include, funding, finalizing identification of funding for construction, or in final design. So there's 22 of those projects from the last 2 fiscal years that are carrying forward as we move them towards construction. And then we have 12 projects that are currently under construction. You'll see the energy conservation projects under construction. Fire Station 36 and 39, not yet out to construction, but we anticipate within the next month or 2. Bids will be coming in June, and they'll be under construction very shortly. You also notice the Allen Witt Phase 3 all-inclusive is on that list instead of on the completed list. The 2030 North Texas Street Recreation Facility, another large project. Downtown Streetscape Phase 1B, and then West Texas Complete Streets, which will be starting in June. So the draft 2026-2030 5-year capital plan that's before you has a total of 102 projects totaling $135 million over the 5-year period. We have left some capacity. You'll notice if you look at the totals at the bottom of the pages, there's some capacity in there for projects in the later years, year 4 and 5. For projects that are going to result from that have been identified in the Parks Master Plan and Facilities Master Plan. So there's no action tonight required by you. This is presentation only. We are looking for any kind of feedback, comments, questions on the projects, on the draft plan. We'll receive those comments. We'll work those into the final document that'll be provided to you with the capital budget on June 16th. And with that, I can answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any requests to speak cards on this item?
This is 02, right?
Yeah.
No, just one on 03 and 04.
Okay.
Did anyone wish to speak? Okay.
Colleagues, any comments? Yes, Councilmember Williams.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Jason, thank you for this presentation. So my question is, to step back, I was on the STA Board of Directors meeting last week on behalf of the mayor, and there was a Caltrans presentation, and they had 2 or 3 items that were on their completion list that were completed projects with the city of Fairfield. But they're not, and it was amazing, it was pretty outstanding that they had a list, and so many of our projects were there. How does that list ever kind of, because you've got to have some touches in their infrastructure projects, does that also land on your success list as well?
The projects, if I'm understanding your question correctly, those would be projects, are you saying, that are completed by Caltrans?
That's what they said.
Okay,
yeah.
so we do coordinate with Caltrans, typically through STA. If we both have projects in the area, we coordinate those, and we plan those accordingly so that if we can get the best bang for our buck, working in the same area, and also so that we don't affect traffic twice. Freeway off-ramps, the Gateway off-ramp is a good example. So does that answer your question? They wouldn't land on our list because they're not completed by our staff.
Got it.
With our funds. Those projects are funded through other resources by Caltrans.
Got it. So that means unless we bring it back from STA as an update, this council wouldn't know that these success projects were done. That's a question in my mind. Okay, I think that's the answer. Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments, colleagues?
Just one.
Councilmember Sandhu.
Thank you for the presentation.
Sure.
When a project is in the design phase, is it typical not to allocate construction funding preliminarily?
We can. It's a little bit of a cash flow, but we can do it. Some projects we do it. On the smaller projects that we think we can design and maybe get out to bid, because we want to guarantee we have the funding before we place the project out to bid. So in those projects, we would do that. We would both design and construction in the same year. Typically, to cash flow the project, especially on the larger projects might be cash flowed for construction over 3 years or 2 years, depending on, we expect it's an 18-month construction or versus a 12-month construction.
So generally, like, a project would go from design to construction maybe in 1 year, and then in the second year, you'll reevaluate the budget.
Correct.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right. Thank you very much.
Sure, thank you.
Item 03, Landscape Oversight Committee recommendations for a landscaping and lighting maintenance district Proposition 218 balloting process. Discussion and direction regarding Landscape Oversight Committee recommendations for a landscaping and lighting maintenance district Proposition 218 balloting process. And our presenter is Chris Lewis, Senior Management Analyst.
Okay, good evening, everybody. This presentation is a follow-up to a discussion that was held at the April 1st City Council meeting regarding a second Proposition 218 balloting process for 3 of the 7 landscaping and lighting maintenance districts, or LLMDs, that did not pass during the 2023 balloting process. So after hearing some concerns from the property owners, and after receiving a recommendation from the Landscape Oversight Committee and the subcommittee to the Landscape Oversight Committee to consider a second balloting process, the council, at the April 1st meeting, the council agreed to consider moving forward, and you all directed the Landscape Oversight Committee to provide a recommendation for the 3 landscaping and lighting maintenance districts that should be considered for a second process. So staff brought that directive to the Landscape Oversight Committee at their April 17th meeting, and since no timeline was established at that time, and still isn't, by the way, we shared this example timeline of what the balloting process would look like if our target effective date for new assessments was July 1st, or in other words, fiscal year 26-27. So the example timeline that was provided to the committee and the example timeline you'll find in attachment 2 to the staff report of this item, it's essentially the same. There were some RFQ, or the request for qualification activities. Some of those changed slightly just based on new information, but all of the important information from July 2025 onward is essentially the same. I wanted to go over this timeline with you tonight because later on after the presentation, I'll be asking for your direction regarding the timeline. So I do have a condensed version for you here on this slide of all the activities that we'll need to complete by June 30th, 2026, if we're going to keep that July 1 target date. One thing you might notice is that this timeline does look very similar to our 2023 balloting timeline. And while I think there's plenty of time to do all the sort of engineering work and administrative and legal processes, there are some concerns about the level of community engagement that we're going to be able to provide. But just to start us off, between now and August 2025, the city would need to complete our consultant selection. So that's going to be our RFQ. That's going to be getting our Landscape Oversight Committee to approve the selected consultant at their July 17th meeting. We'll need to negotiate contracts and have council approval by the end of August. We would give the consultant about 6 months from September 25 to February 26 to work on those engineers' reports. Just a point of note that the holiday season is set in the middle of that timeline. Of course, holidays always have the potential for delays, but we do think that 6 months is a sufficient amount of time to complete those reports. The timeline shows that community engagement will begin in February 2026 with the engineers' report, and that's kind of, I wanted to kind of touch on that a little bit and elaborate. I do have a note in the staff report, and I did provide this information to the Landscape Oversight Committee, that, of course, the committee can engage in community engagement at any point. They can start reaching out, having their conversations, but what we do think, based on the 2023 process, is that there will be some challenges getting most of the people from these districts in the room, ready to work, ready to hear the information, if we don't have that engineer's report in hand. So during the 2023 process, the city did begin our community engagement 12 to 18 months, just depending on which district. There were 9 districts. So between 12 to 18 months prior to the ballots being mailed out in April, we began our community engagement process. At the same time we began our community engagement process, we had the assessment engineers working on the engineers' reports. We thought we'd get the conversation going and kind of like introduce the LLMDs to these property owners. At that point, some property owners didn't even know they were in an LLMD. But unfortunately, that did not go quite as planned. A lot of the property owners gave us feedback stating that the community engagement was just less effective without that engineer's report in hand, being that the engineer's report is the document that tells the property owners, what their proposed new assessments are going to be. It tells them what the city is going to be responsible for, what portion of the budget the city is going to be responsible for through their general fund contributions. And it also tells them what methodology the consultant is using, what factors and components are being used to calculate their assessment rates and the city's portion of cost. So having the engagement, even with estimated assessment rates, because we did come up with really, really rough estimates back in 2023, but what we heard is that it was just not as effective without that engineer's report. So in the end of that process, we either had property owners who participated in the community engagement efforts, but they were frustrated because the city just could not give them the information they needed to make decisions and talk to their communities and really generate a positive momentum around the whole process. Or we had property owners who just decided to not participate at all until the city could provide them with that information in April. The engineers' reports were released in February, and ballots went out in April. So with that, it brings me to my next item here on the timeline, which is the start of the beginning of the legal proceedings that's required to form these new districts. In March 2026, approximately 1 month after the engineers' reports are released to the public, council will have to start the legal proceedings by declaring their notice of intent, and will have to mail the ballots out to property owners at least 45 days prior to the public hearing. One of the major critiques we received from property owners 2 years ago was that they did not have enough time to review the engineers' reports, really sit with that information, talk to their communities, members, talk to their neighbors, and ask questions to the city. They said there wasn't enough time between when the engineers' report was released and when the ballots were mailed. Even as recently as this year, in some of the Landscape Oversight Committee meetings, and I think one of the council meetings, property owners kind of expressed frustration with that situation. They did mention they felt maybe forced or pushed into a decision, although that absolutely was not the intent. But the timeline that we were working with made it feel like that's what we were pushing them to make a decision with only 2 months in between the time. In 2023, property owners had 2 months between when the engineers' reports was released. In this timeline, we're proposing there's only an estimated 1 month between the completion of the reports and the mailing of the ballots. Directly following those activities, we will have the public hearing and start the ballot tabulation at the last council meeting in April. In May, we will announce the ballot results, and either we will form new districts for the districts where the ballots were approved, in which case new assessments rates for those communities will start July 1, 2026, or for any districts where the ballot was not approved, in June 2026, the city would have to start the annual legal proceedings for the existing districts, so that way we can collect assessments and still provide some limited services in fiscal year 26-27. So just to summarize, this timeline really does work for completing all the administrative and engineering and legal requirements necessary to have those new assessments starting July 1. It does require us to complete every single task with little to no delay. There's not a lot of wiggle room in this timeline. It also presents some challenges to having in-depth or lengthy community engagement processes, at least with the engineer's reports in hand, because again, community engagement can begin at any time. And then just based on the experience and feedback from 2 years ago, we don't think that this timeline really provides the time that we think property owners will want or need with that engineer's reports. We also heard that some communities were considering making some significant changes to either their scopes of work. Maybe they wanted to include or exclude certain landscape areas in their district. Some maybe wanted to change landscape design, like look into drought-tolerant type of projects. A couple communities were also interested in reshaping the boundaries of their districts. But unfortunately, for all of these types of significant changes, that is not possible with this timeline, just because those types of significant changes require us to do, to have a lot of community meetings and to make sure that it's something that everybody in the community wants. It also requires, it also affects the type of analysis that whatever assessment engineer we do choose will have to complete. So all of that information, if there are significant changes, we'll need to know that well in advance of when the assessment engineer commences their work, so they can include all of those changes in the engineer's report. So I did share this information with the Landscape Oversight Committee on April 17th. I did tell them that if we were to follow this timeline, we would proceed with writing an engineer's report that reflects and assumes the same scope of services, the same boundary areas, just essentially the same district specifications that was in place prior to 2023. A lot of folks did seem to be happy with the pre-2023 levels before they were reduced after the ballot failed. Or was not passed. So if we were to move forward with this, that's what we would do. We would just assume the same scope of services. So that being said, the Landscape Oversight Committee did make a recommendation at their April 17th meeting. First, they recommended that Landscaping and Lighting Maintenance District Number 5, Smith Ranch, also known as Rancho Solano, and LLMD Number 7, Rolling Hills, be considered for a second process. They also recommended that any third LLMD for which at least 10% of the district property owners provide written requests, email, a note, a letter, any sort of written request to participate in a balloting process, by August 25th also be considered for this a second balloting process. That August 25th or August 1st, 2025 date. Sorry if I said August 25th. I think so. August 1st date is around the time we'll have to button up negotiations with the assessment engineering consultant. So we'll need to know what the scope of work is at that time. Now, the committee did comment, and staff does agree, that the Smith Ranch and Rolling Hills communities, they have been the most vocal, they have been the most active, and really have shown the most interest in a second balloting process. So we agree that those two are appropriate districts. It does seem like there's been a little bit of less communication or maybe less interest in the other 5 districts that did not pass in 2023, but the committee definitely wanted to leave an invitation open for any third district just in case interest did come up. So Councilmember Williams did host a community meeting for LLMD number 13 North Cordelia on May 1st, which I had the pleasure of attending and presenting at. That meeting was specifically to determine whether or not the North Cordelia residents were interested in a balloting process. I did provide them with this same timeline, and of the 20 or so ish folks that attended there, a majority of them indicated that for their community, and this timeline with getting a ballot approved by 26-27 just seemed too tight for that community. They indicated they're probably not quite ready for a vote just yet. They want to get together with their community, talk to their HOAs, kind of talk amongst themselves and come up with a plan for how they want to move forward and when they want to vote. The invitation is, of course, still open to them if they'd like to join by August 1st, but it seems, at this time at least, that North Cordelia will not be participating in the 218 process. So the second thing that the Landscape Oversight Committee recommended is to actually move forward with the timeline and have new assessment rates effective July 1st, 2026. So again, I provided them with the timeline. I did express the same concerns I expressed with you tonight, and the committee, a lot of the committee members shared those same concerns. But during their discussion, some of the responses to those concerns centered around some of the differences that we actually have between the 2023 process and what would be the proposed process for fiscal year 27. First, the fact that we didn't have a Landscape Oversight Committee in 2023 to really spearhead this community engagement, so that's one difference. Secondly, the city, the Landscape Oversight Committee, a lot of the active participants in a lot of these districts, we now have a better understanding that this is really a grassroots effort. The city is definitely doing our part by completing the engineer's reports, completing the legal processes, supporting all the community engagement we can, including posting social media posts, posting things to our websites, attending these community meetings. But the real movement behind this effort and the real results are going to come from neighbors talking to neighbors and these private citizens advocating for the outcome that they'd like to see during the process. The third difference is that a large portion of property owners in 2023, this was their first introduction to LLMDs. A lot of them didn't know what an LLMD was or weren't aware that they were actually paying assessments. So at least this time around, it's not going to be news, something the first time that a lot of these folks are going to be hearing. They're going to be more familiar with LLMDs in the process and the reason why this vote is needed. The next point is that since the ballots failed in 2023, services have been reduced, and I think property owners are, and the committee voiced that they believe property owners are now seeing the results of that vote. They're seeing the impacts of what that vote actually means. And so now with the visual aid, and again with all the buzz and the chatter that's been happening in these communities, it may lead more people in the communities to be engaged, to be more curious, kind of figure out what they can do to kind of change the outcomes. And it also might lead to a different vote than what happened in 2023. And lastly, as I mentioned earlier, this process really began in 2021. We began our community engagement 2021, 2022 timeframe, and as you know, that was right in the middle of COVID. So many people had a lot of very important things that they, other things they had to attend to. A lot of people were concerned about their family's health. Some people were facing job loss. There were just so many significant changes, so many uncertainties at that time that it's possible people were just prioritizing other very, very important things. Now that we don't have a pandemic looming, among us, it might be a different outcome during this next process. So, with that being said, the recommended action we have for you tonight is for the council to discuss the Landscape Oversight Committee recommendations, and we're also requesting you to provide direction to staff as to which LLMDs should move forward in a second Prop 218 process, and which target or which effective date, or which fiscal year the council would like these new assessment rates to take effect. Thank you.
And then just one thing. Chris, if you could go back one slide, just one additional thing I want to share with the council. As it relates specifically to LLMD number 5, Smith Ranch, Rancho Solano, both Sanjay Mishra, Public Works Director, and myself have been in conversations with 2 of their board members, president of the board of the HOA for Rancho Solano, as well as I think he's their finance director or board CFO. Thank you. I appreciate that. With the CFO, we think there might be a possibility, an opportunity. We need to go and engage with the HOA, with the Rancho Solano folks, which I think we have scheduled for June the 4th, maybe, a meeting with those folks. There might be a creative solution that doesn't necessitate going after another LLMD 218 vote. But in terms of your conversation tonight, I wouldn't take the 218 process off the table necessarily as you discuss and deliberate and provide us direction. I just want to make sure that you all are aware that there could be a cheaper, faster, more straightforward alternative that we are actively working on as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chris. Do we have any public speakers on this item?
Yes, Carol Haddock.
Good evening. As you know, I've been working on with Rolling Hills since 2021, I think, on this LLMD issue, because that's one of the hardest hit developments. And certainly you can see the reduced services that is going on there. Since then, when the Prop 218 ballot went out and it did not pass in 2023, Vice Mayor Bertani set up a working group. We called it the Neighborhood Support Group, made up of residents from Rolling Hills and Paradise Valley, which did pass. And we kind of looked at exactly the process and what worked and what did not work, and we had quite the list. And what we realized was it does take a grassroots effort, because Paradise Valley was very successful in going door to door and making it very aware and putting it in their newsletter or whatever they had to do with their HOA, so it was a great help. And we just looked at the number one thing, and there were several that we wanted to fix, but I'm just going to talk about one tonight, was the lack of time between the engineer's report and the ballot. There was no time for the residents to come back to the city and say, hey, we want to talk about the level of service and the cost. And is there any back and forth that we could adjust this? Well, no, we had 6 weeks. Feedback from the working group couldn't happen. Feedback from the residents, it was like, here, vote, and hopefully yes. And there was no time to have additional community meetings to really, once you had the scope of the work and the price of the work out there, to get any feedback. So I think that's one of the biggest reasons it failed. Rick Johnson's on a big family vacation. He called me Sunday. He said, oh, please, are you going to say something? I go, okay. And I'm shorter than him, I promise you. Residents really need time to campaign. So I'm going to urge the city council, everything on here is correct, except we would really want more time between the engineer's report coming out, time to interact with the residents, and the ballot. And I've talked to Chris about this, and she says there really is no carved in stone that you have to have a ballot that quickly. And what you want is a resolution and a solution. So if you can't get the ballot out in time, and you can't make that engineer's report come back sooner, maybe the ballot has to happen in July or August or September, and yes, guess what? It hits a whole year later on your tax rolls. But as Green Valley, I went to that meeting as well. They have time. They need time to think about what the community really wants and can agree on, and something that will stand the test of time. And what's your CPI going to be, and all that. So I'm just going to say this is all very good. We're excited to have this coming back, but the timeline needs to be adjusted and maybe fluid to when the citizens and the city think it is time to have a ballot. And if we don't think that it will pass, you don't really need to spend $20,000 and have a ballot. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Carr.
Yeah, I didn't mention, and thank you, Carol, for coming out on the speaking tour in District 3 on Saturday. We appreciate you come, even though there wasn't too many people there concerned about it, but thank you for coming.
Okay, thank you. Any other public speakers on this item?
I don't have any cards.
Okay.
There's no one online, actually, either.
Colleagues, any questions or comments? Councilmember Williams.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. And thank you, Chris. Thank you for coming out to Green Valley, North Cordelia, and speaking to the community. So I just wanted to say two things. That meeting was very helpful for me, not only because I represent that district, but also speaking to Carol's point, it almost gave me a roadmap of what needed to happen to make sure that these LMDs that come forward first are successful. And so I really feel like, Vice Mayor, you have your hands around how close this is to being successful. And if you, and I know you have your arms around it, so if you feel like these LLMDs are close enough and will be successful, I'll follow you. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Very much. Any other comments from Councilmember Sandhu?
Thank you for the presentation. So at the moment, after today's meeting, we're not deciding on an election date quite yet, right?
Not an election date, well, kind of, because if you want the assessments to be effective July 1, 2026, that's the timeline we have to follow.
July 1, 2026.
Correct, yeah. So about a year, 14 months.
Oh, you said July 1? Not January, July 1.
July 1, yeah, for fiscal year 26, 27, yeah.
Broadly speaking, no matter how we move forward, which I'd want to at least have 4 to 6 months for the campaign part.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as it's not condensed more than that, looks fine. The one thing, though, I will say, I would lean toward not having a third option, even if there is more than 10% support.
Okay.
I would prefer we keep it to just the two.
Okay.
No matter what, just to limit the spread of work going on.
Mm-hmm.
That's my only caveat to the recommendation, is I would pull the third option even for the upcoming cycle, and just focus on the two where we know now there is strong support.
Sure. For clarification, when you said 4 to 6 months, I think you said 4 to 6 months of the campaign, did you mean with or without the engineer's report?
I guess I'm assuming the campaign would not start without the engineer's report, so once the engineer's report is completed, to have 4 to 6 months of time for the campaign.
Okay, because in this timeline, we estimate the engineer's report would be done by February 2026. Ballots would be mailed out by March 2026, and a public hearing would be in April, and we're forming the districts by May. So there's only 1 month.
And is that the timeline the two communities are in favor of? 1 month and then?
I have not. I have not spoken to the communities directly. We are taking the recommendation of the Landscape Oversight Committee and the representatives from that committee and the City Council Subcommittee to the Landscape Oversight Committee. So I can't definitively, I have not spoken directly to that community, so I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of Rancho Solano, as I said, we've been having active conversations with their HOA, board president and CFO for what seems like a very plausible alternative to doing a full engineer's report and the 218 vote and campaign and all of that. So we should know here within the next, I would say, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whether or not that's going to be a path that we're going to go down. As far as Rolling Hills, I would defer to the vice mayor. I know she's been, the Rolling Hills Neighborhood Network, very active group, and I know the vice mayor has been in 1 or 2 meetings already with that group where they've been actively talking about what path they want to go and what a campaign might look like there.
Yeah, and thank you, Mr. City Manager. And I will say, let me just ask a quick question, Chris. Is the March 26th mail-out ballot date mandatory by law? There's no way that can be extended at all?
It's not mandatory by law. It does have to be approved before June 30th. So we could push it out maybe 1 month, but what that does for us is if the district is not approved, we don't have any time on the back end to get the existing district assessments approved so we can provide services. We would, if the district is not approved, we would have to kind of roll into annual proceedings for the district that's already in place, so that way we can provide services. So it's kind of like rolling the dice on whether or not the district will be approved.
Yeah, the big driver of timeline here is August 10th of every single year. That is the legal deadline by which we have to submit to the county any information that would be placed on the property tax rolls for property tax bills that go out for the December payment and the April payment of December 26 and April of 2027.
So
when
that's August 2026.
Correct.
August 10th, 2026.
Correct. And so working backwards from that, what Chris is saying is that May timeline is if a new district, similar in 2023, a new district did not pass, it failed the 218 vote. We then turned around and brought back to the council the process for the existing LLMD district so that there was still some revenue. If we don't get to that sort of a backup process, then there is nothing for us to submit to the rolls for 26-27, and there would effectively be a zero assessment that year. There would be no money in the district. And so there is no legal deadline for when the ballots have to go out, but if you want to hit the 26-27 fiscal year timeline, working backwards, you've got to have ballots go out in enough time that you have a backstop to go back to the existing district if needed and initiate those proceedings.
Thank you. And so you're saying that pushing that ballot mailing off by 1 month would destroy the possibility of making the deadline?
It would severely impact it, yes. So while the county's deadline is August 10th, the 1972 Landscaping Act requires that all these assessments be approved by July 1st of every single year, unless we get the county's special approval to kind of extend it past. So extend it past that July 1 date. So we're really working with the July 1 deadline for any assessments, whether it's the new district, whether it's the existing districts, because the new districts didn't pass. We have a July 1 deadline. What is a legal requirement is that the ballots are mailed at least 45 days prior to the public hearing. So that's an important piece.
Thank you. Carol, did you want to make another comment?
I mean, if the deadline is passed, it can go to the next financial year. That's,
Yeah,
that's,
but then we're stuck with the diminished services that we're all concerned with right now.
that's correct.
Excuse me?
If you don't initiate the proceedings under what would otherwise be the existing LLMD district, then it would be a zero assessment for that year. So it's not just the reduced, what you're seeing now, it'll be
zero if we miss it.
Correct.
Understood. So,
Correct.
yeah. Well, I'll tell you this, in terms of Rolling Hills by no means intends to wait until the engineer's report to start the community engagement. Like the city manager alluded to, I've already attended the first Rolling Hills neighborhood meeting where we're discussing moving forward now. And I say that because in terms of community engagement, one of the things that we have now, which is one thing that we didn't have in 23, is an engineering report from 2023. So we don't have the exact numbers of the new engineering report that's coming out in 2026, February 2026, but there has not been, at least residents have an idea of what this process is, what the numbers might possibly look like, and what a continued reduction of services actually looks like when you're driving along in your neighborhood. People don't like it. So those are three things that we have now that we did not have in the 2023 process. So we're devising, at least in Rolling Hills, we're devising a kind of a balloting procedure. We're going to have some, town hall meeting time. We're going to have some town hall meetings, and we're going to get people engaged in the process now. So we won't, I understand your timeline, but we're already actively meeting and engaging the neighborhood, getting subcommittees together in different precincts in the Rolling Hills neighborhood. So that's why this timeline, at least for Rolling Hills, doesn't concern me that much. They've seen this timeline. We had the timeline at our meeting a couple of weeks ago at our community meeting, at the home of June Johnson with the Rolling Hills Neighborhood Network. So we've seen this, and we plan on moving full steam ahead. With Rancho Solano, it's a different story. We still have some time, though, because we do have the town hall meeting set up for Rancho Solano in the first week of June. And so we want the residents in Rancho Solano to look at this information, to hear from us, to hear from you, and to consider the alternative process that may be available through the HOA, which circumvents the 218 process. So again, you know, we will receive, so everybody in Rancho, please come to this meeting, because this is where we're going to be talking about this and making the final decision. We'll all be there with bells on. So, I mean, I think that I know that Rolling Hills has seen this, so I feel positive moving forward at this time. And if we do move forward at this time, you're not going to be getting we're going to be going through the consultant selection process until August, right? So, go ahead.
Yes, no, we are.
Okay. So that still gives us some time to nail down the specifics from each of the communities, you know, to continue the discussions for now. And if for some reason Rancho Solano says, well, this process with the HOA isn't going to work, we want to go through the 218 process, then at this point there would still be time for them to do that, right?
Yes.
Okay. And the same thing with Rolling Hills, right? Which is, I know it's not going to happen in Rolling Hills, but if they say, oh, we don't want to move forward this time, we want to wait until next year, at this point, there's still time for that to happen as well.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, just one friendly clarification.
Yes, sir.
The options with Rancho Solano HOA would not be circumventing the 218 process.
Oh, I didn't say that.
I
I didn't say circumventing, Mr. City Attorney and Mr. City Manager.
So
We're not circumventing
Yeah, we're not
anything
circumventing any
here,
laws
okay?
here. I just want to
My
make that
bad.
clear. It was just the way it was
Thank you.
phrased.
Got
It's not
you.
the intent. Yep.
Got you. Yeah. I understood. Yes. Yeah. Okay, so what do you need from us right now, Chris?
We'd like your direction as to which LLMDs to move forward in the proposition, or the second balloting process, and then the target effective date for the new assessment rates, which.
Well, I mean, I think the Landscape Oversight Committee's recommendations are advisable, because that was an open meeting. Everybody who wanted to speak had an opportunity to do so. So I recommend sticking with the Landscape Oversight Committee recommendations at this point, which is to have Rolling Hills, Rancho Solano, and then a possible third, which I don't think that we're going to have to entertain, because we just have not had any any robust community engagement from any other of these districts. So, and Councilmember Williams' district saw it and said, no, not this time around. Yeah, so we don't have to, we're not going to contemplate that district. So I recommend for us right now to stick with the Landscape Oversight Committee's recommendations and continue to have discussions in Rancho and Rolling Hills moving forward.
With new assessments effective fiscal year 26, 27.
Yeah.
Okay. Does that require?
Yeah. Is that direction?
Yes,
I do want to check with the other council members here. who
Yeah,
have not-
absolutely. Other council members. Good?
Madam Vice Mayor,
Yes,
I guess
sir.
my one thing would be, I would be specific to say that, at least just from my perspective, I agree with the recommendation except I want to be clear that I don't want a third, to be specific. I don't want, even if it comes up after the fact, just want to be clear that just the two. That's all I want to specify. I don't mean to be splitting hairs here, but I want to be clear with that. Just
No, you're entitled to put your concerns on the record.
So that's my only one slight deviation. I don't know if that changes the perspective, but that's my only thing.
Anything else? Okay, is that enough
Okay.
direction?
Yeah, so if I hear the direction is that we're proceeding with Rancho Solano and Rolling Hills, and that aiming for the 26-27, and there's still some time to adjust here between now and, next spring if needed, as the community groups come together. But ultimately, it's those two that we're aiming for the next year for the ballot.
And is it only those two? I just want to confirm, I'm not sure if
Yes.
that was the official.
Yeah, that's-
Okay,
I
so
mean-
it's just those two, period?
Checking with you all, but I heard Councilmember Sandu say that, I heard Councilmember Williams say she agreed, and then I saw head nods from others, so I'm
Yeah,
just.
I agree that it should just be those two in consideration. I haven't heard any dialogue that says that any third is even close to, so I think that's an easy thing to agree to. There's no other LLMD that is this close to being ready.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll move forward with that.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 04.
Yes.
Proposed updates for use of electric bikes at Rockville Hills Regional Park and discussion of budget constraints. Discussion and direction proposed updated recommendations to ordinance 2020-04 for the use of electric bikes at Rockville Hills Regional Park and discussion of budget constraints impacting the management plan implementation, including repurposing community facilities, District 4A. And I'm not sure who the presenter is.
I believe it's going to be Jared Preston, the chair of Rockville Hills Citizen Advisory Committee.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Welcome.
Good evening, everyone. I have to admit, I fully appreciate the stamina and the endurance of the city council because I am pooped right now. So if we all need to take a breath, I understand. But thank you for having us. I'm representing the Rockville Hills Park Community Advisory Committee, and I would like to say that I just want to recognize the 7 committee members for their volunteer and their service to really invest in the future of this park. I will move through this presentation briskly, largely because I've given this presentation before, but it's been a while. And we have 2 matters to discuss, just to frame them really quickly. The first is, how do we support the well-being of the park financially moving forward? And the committee has a suggestion, I would say thinking outside the box here, which we will have our first discussion on. And then the second discussion will be on the decision on whether or not to allow e-bikes into the park, and to not bury the lead. The committee is split on this decision, and so we're looking for direction and guidance and potentially a decision on one of 3 options to choose on how we might proceed with e-bikes coming into the park. So with that, I'll move through the presentation quickly. So the situation to date, we believe that there is a viable management plan into the park. However, it's not currently being implemented, and in large part, that is a funding and resourcing issue. And one of the things that have come to light of late is that we have a ranger who has been on disability for a while, and we believe that is impacting the park. This is a high-level overview of what it would take to bring the park into accordance with the management plan. We believe that it will take approximately $1 million, and we estimate that about $300,000 to $4,000 of that fund are variable costs. The rest would be sunk to bring the park into accordance with the management plan. The high-level budget here is the park brings in about, más o menos, about $100,000 in revenue a year, but we spend about $500,000 a year to maintain the park. Obviously, the city has a significant budget deficit with high-priority city services that have recently been cut. The park, it's been shared with us, is not currently a budget priority. Thus, we're proposing some alternative and some innovative funding models. And I have to say that the city manager has been an outstanding partner in this exercise. So this is big idea number one, is to consider the repurposing of CFD 4A. CFD 4A is explicitly and expressly for the acquisition of open space, and the city advises that it has no plans to acquire new open space as it cannot afford to maintain the space that we have. CFD 4A currently has a balance of approximately $1.6 million and accruing quarterly. And our recommendation is to consider amending eligible expenditures of this CFD to acquisition and maintenance of city open space. While time intensive and certainly not a short-term magic bullet kind of solve, we do believe this may be a best path forward for the long-term well-being of the park. We also, upon your direction, evaluated the park user fee schedule, and we brought a resolution to the City Council in December, which was approved, and those new fees have been updated into the park. However, we do not believe that this will make a meaningful contribution to the overall budget needs of the park. So we do recommend an effort to amend CFD 4A, and we're looking to the City Council to provide further guidance on a path forward on securing funding for the park, e.g. Amending CFD 4A in order to in an effort to implement the management plan of the park. Should I stop here for discussion, or should I move through the e-bike section as well?
Why don't you keep going?
You got it. So this is a recap of where we've been with e-bikes now. So we were asked by the City Council in the spring of 2023 to provide a recommendation on whether or not to allow e-bikes. I would say that the recommendation of the RCAC was to allow only Class 1 e-bikes into the park, and it was through our discussions and evaluation of this ask from the City Council that we identified that there were some resourcing needs and some potential safety constraints in the park. And so the committee, or the RCAC, really struggled with just letting e-bikes into the park without also addressing some of the other needs of the park. As a result of our presentation, the City Council agreed with the RCAP recommendations and agreed not to allow e-bikes into the park until proper resourcing is funded, thus why we're talking funding today, and asked the RCAC to work with the city to clarify the budget required and how to conform with the management plan and to provide some solutions. As a reminder, and this is a really important concept, there are 3 classes of e-bikes, and the difference between each of these classes of e-bikes is important, and we're only recommending the admission of Class 1 bikes into the park. Class 2 bikes and Class 3 bikes are out of scope in our recommendation. We're only recommending Class 1 bikes.
Vice Mayor, can I stop right there?
Oh, please.
And the differences in these bikes are massive. I know that, but does everybody know that and seen the differences in these bicycles? Because I did ask for them to bring one, if you care to take a look at. It basically looks like a bicycle, and they did bring one, and if anybody would like to see it, maybe you can bring it forward. Could you grab it?
You want to see it?
It looks like a little show and tell. Sure, get the bike.
Only if you write it down.
Exactly. You got to ride that thing in here. He's going to write it in.
We have the fire department today, so. He's going to write it.
I'm being advised by city attorney not to ride the bike down the council chambers.
I actually almost said that. And then
Exactly.
Don't be a party pooper. Don't say
There we go. Come on, bro. Slow down. Nice. Nice.
This is the presentation of the e-bike. Important features, the seat goes up and
Wait,
down.
hold on, Mr. Carr, if you could please step to the microphone so that otherwise our folks online can't hear you.
So, the e-bike has a lot of features. One is this pose seat. It drops, so when you're in a technical area, I can sit on the seat, put my feet on the ground, and walk through it.
This is level 1?
This is a Class 1 e-bike.
Class 1.
It has 5 different stages of power to get you up the hill. It doesn't go uphill fast, it just gets you up the hill. So there's no speeding up the hill. Like any bike, it can speed down. They have really good disc brakes front and back, so you can basically stop on a really steep vertical. The number one feature for guys like me, I'll be 69 on Saturday, is I can get up the hill 3 times without blowing up my heart. A misconception that I hear from everybody is the tires. This is like any mountain bike. Any pedal bike, same tires. So it doesn't tear up. We've done extensive research with all the parks. It doesn't hurt the terrain. It's no more dangerous than any other bike.
Give him his 2 minutes.
I got
Or
one
3
question.
minutes.
Could you show us where the throttle is that makes it go fast?
There is no throttle.
Thank you.
You have to, this is in sports mode.
So you have to pedal the bike,
You
just like,
have to pedal the bike to get any power.
thank you.
Mr. City Attorney, I'd like to state counsel is testifying.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Carr. Please go.
Last slide, I think, or second to last slide. So the decisions we have for you to make today is one of 3 options. Option 1 is to allow Class 1 e-bikes into the park. Blanket statement. We're happy to revisit some of the capabilities and some of the other research we've talked about, but I think some of that might be in your staff report. Option number 2 is to allow Class 1 e-bikes into the park if minimum staffing is available. And option 3 is to allow Class 1 e-bikes into the park contingent on securing funding to support the management plan. And I will say, like, this is a place where the RCAC is stuck. I would say that we are squarely in the option 1 and option 2 bucket, and we added option 3 just for being comprehensive and making sure that we provided you with options. But we're split in that, so I think that is why we're coming to you for direction and decisions. But again, to reinforce, the decision we're looking for only applies to Class 1 e-bikes, the ones of the like that Jim shared. Thank
Okay,
you.
superb. Thank you very much. Do we have any other public speakers on this item?
Oh, did you want to speak? Okay. What's your name?
You can fill out a.
Oh,
there
you
we
have
go.
one. Thank you.
Okay, please, thank you. Come on up.
Hello.
Hello.
Sorry if I say some ums and whatnot. I'm not a public speaker by job
It's
or whatever.
your chamber, so just relax.
So I've been a resident of Fairfield since 1974, mountain biker for 40 years, I've been park ambassador since the early 2000s with Rockville Park. I helped out cutting a large number of the trails up at Rockville Park. I'm one of the 4 founding members of Rockville Bike Shop. Also the Rats Bike Club out of that bike shop. I'm a fire captain with the city of Fairfield. I could live anywhere, but I've chosen to live here. I could have moved years ago, but I live and work in Fairfield. My family's here. I'm the youngest of 4. We're all here. My nieces and nephews are all still here. So I have a very pretty high vested interest in the city of Fairfield, Rockville Hills Park. I love that place. I have every trail memorized. I've been there for 40 years. I'm hypervigilant for fire damage, obviously. So when it comes to e-bikes, I have regular bikes, e-bikes, all that kind of stuff. I've heard a lot of people talk about the danger of e-bikes. They're going to cause fires and yada, yada, yada. I keep my bikes underneath my children's bedrooms at home. I wouldn't do that if they were dangerous. I ride bikes up in the park. I wouldn't put a bike in a park that I love as dearly as do Rockville Park if I thought I was going to burn it down. And the reality is, Class 1 e-bikes are already in Rockville Park right now. If I go on there on a Saturday and I see 30 bikes, 7 will be e-bikes. They're legal across the street of Pat Wino Park. They've been legal ever since Pat Wino opened. That place hasn't burned down. They haven't terrorized the trails. These are Class 1 e-bikes. So that's something that people really need to understand is a Class 1 e-bike, if you were slow on a regular bike, you're gonna be slow on a Class 1 e-bike too. It's just gonna keep you from feeling like you're gonna die climbing the hill. But as far as your mountain biking ability, it's not gonna make you a motorcycle racer or anything like that.
You have 30 seconds.
30 seconds, okay. So anyway, like I said, the hazard of an e-bike is no different than this iPhone. The hazard is when you're charging it. It's not when you're using it. If you keep it in your pocket, it's never gonna catch on fire. But if you have it charging underneath your bed, underneath your pillow at home, it starts to heat up. That's why you need to keep it away from your pillow and yada, 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 don't cover it. Same thing with an e-bike. It's not gonna catch on fire while you're pedaling the thing.
That's your time.
Yep, that's it.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
We have one more speaker, Vince Gisande.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor, Council, staff, thank you for having me. Actually, I wasn't planning on speaking tonight. You know, I felt this can's been kicked down the road far enough. The City Council gave us direction. We did our work. We were very diligent. We brought the information. I brought 4 bicycles here personally so you guys could see. We had a city survey that went out regarding e-bikes. It was frustrating for myself as an RCAC member to come back and there was members that I don't even know what a Class 1 e-bike was. And it was obvious to me that we had done the work, done the diligence, brought the facts that show that the bicycles are no significant impact any more than any other bicycle. And it was frustrating for myself, for members that didn't even really look at our work. And, you know, I've shared before that I'm self-employed. To me, time is everything. And we give our time to this thing. So like I said, I'm repeating myself about being frustrated that, you know, the council didn't really get familiarized with the work that you guys asked us to do. So, like I said, you know, I didn't think it would be too beneficial for me to speak. I guess you can tell I'm a proponent for Class 1 e-bikes. I've shared here before, we go up hills and we have kids that are without e-bikes, that are regular analog bikes that are passing us up these hills. So, you know, Mr. Yu shared about the fire impact that was shared by a caller in, caught us all off guard. Okay, we did the research. There's no history, if you look it up, of fires caused by e-bikes while riding in the parks. There is an issue sometimes with lower end machines while you're charging them, electric drills, batteries, that is the issue. So anyways, I think this can's been kicked down the road long enough. There's not going to be an impact. Like I said, like we've said, they're already there.
30 seconds.
I see that. I got a clock right here. Thank you. Anyways, thank you for your time. Hopefully, we're ready to let us OGs ride these bikes here and not have to travel everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers on this item?
I got a speaker card. Did my presentation count?
Yeah. Your presentation counted.
You're good enough.
I just want to say one thing.
No, I'm not kidding. You had your 3 minutes. Okay. I mean, if you want to just wrap it up, since it was a demonstrative exhibit, you know, if you want to just wrap it up, go ahead.
No, I'm good.
Are you sure? Yeah. Okay. All right. All right. Anyone else want to speak? Okay, colleagues, comments, questions, guidance?
I like your approach to repurposing a CFD. If you're good with it, I'm good with it. On the e-bike question, I recall us going over it the first time with some level of confusion, I'll admit. I'm good with it. Let's do class 1. Let's get it going. And let's let these gentlemen and folks and head home and maybe on their bike too, but I'm good with the class 1 from my perspective, Madam Vice Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Carr.
And I'm good with option 1 as well.
Councilmember Panduro.
I have a question around the CDF4 amendment, what the timeline would look like, and then how challenging would that be to pass?
So it's a very interesting process to amend a CFD. There's very prescribed requirements, but unlike the LLMDs, so it's a 218 process, and I know that's like, oh my gosh, that's scary, that's stressful, but it's actually a different process than the LLMDs. And so first there has to be a issuance of a notice of intent by the City Council. If you do not receive a 50% plus 1 of the registered voters within the boundaries of the district, if more than half do not protest, then you have to proceed between 30 and 60 days to have a public hearing of a notice of intent to have the election. Once you have the public hearing, then you have 90 to 180 days to host the public hearing. Then, the ballots are sent after the notice of intent. Then 90 to 80 days after the public hearing, after the public hearing, then the vote is due back. This is a ballot to registered voters within the district, so it doesn't go on, it's not on a November ballot, it's a mail ballot. It must be completed, similar to the LMDs, must be completed by August 10th if you were to want to get it on the next year's rolls. I don't think in terms of, and Mr. Preston, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think in terms of the conversation with the RCAC members, there was necessarily this has to be this immediate timeline, like we have to get it onto this next year. I think it was more, if time is needed in order for a citizen committee or citizen group to come together and start to do the outreach, then they wanted to see a higher likelihood of success than necessarily the immediacy. Once the ballots go out, then it is a 2/3 vote. Because it is a special tax, because it's specific in what the tax revenue, the assessment revenue would be used for, so it requires 2/3. But it's only to the registered voters of the parcels. The parcels in the district, there's 2,886 parcels. So assuming all of them are registered voters, then you would need 2/3 of that number. I don't know if that answers the question.
David, I thought it was 2/3 of the voters that turned out.
Yes, that's right. Of the total votes cast, correct. Similar to the LLMD in that regard, but it's not a must get over. It's 2/3 of the votes cast. Yes, thank you, Jared.
And just clarification, and that is for the allocating the funds that we're talking about, correct?
Allocating the funds. So the CFD right now, so the CFD generates about $550,000 a year in revenue, but it's restricted specifically, as Jared said, to the acquisition of open space. Given that we can't even manage and maintain the open space that we currently have, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that we rush out and try to find additional open space. If it's amended, the amendment would allow for maintenance and acquisition as well as maintaining the ability to acquire additional open space. But what this would do is at about $550,000 per year of revenue, this would unlock the money, as one of the prior slides showed, where after an initial needed investment to bring the park back up to where it should be, if you're at $400,000 per year of additional maintenance costs, then this revenue would be sufficient in order to maintain Rockville in the way that it is intended to be maintained.
And deserves to be.
Correct.
Yeah, so thank you, because I appreciate the innovativeness in that, and it would be great to see that move forward. I know it would take, though, a dedicated set of citizens because I think whenever you're going to pass something like this, you're going to make an amendment, just like with the 218 process that we're talking about, the LMDs, it's a lot more, the barriers are less when you have actual neighbors going to neighbors' doors versus just the city telling them something, right? And so if it does move forward, I think you're gonna have to kind of rally and get folks like to have like a citizens committee of some sort to be able to, get that word out and talk to folks. And I'm also okay with allowing with option 1 for the e-bikes.
One question.
Sure.
Is there any way we can repurpose the CFD without doing a formal vote, just by an action of the council in any matter of speak?
No, it's under the same Proposition 218 law. You got to go to the voters.
All right.
Councilmember Williams.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. The show and tell was very helpful. Thank you very much. And I would be willing to support option 1 as well.
Thank you. I've been on the record for pretty consistently about this since we started talking about this. And my concerns still remain my concerns in terms of having the bikes in the park, even though they're there right now, like you've said. My concerns are still that we don't have any kind of a safety protocol or any kind of an oversight or any the ranger's not there. We don't have anybody in place if something goes wrong with one of these bikes. And I know that you say that nothing ever goes wrong, but that just, statistically, things happen and not intentionally. So I wonder if we can have option 1, but with a modification to do like both and to allow E1 bikes into the park and to have the committee meet and discuss some kind of guidelines, protocols, just safety. Maybe we can post things. I mean, we don't have the ranger that's clear, and we don't know when that person is coming back. But can the committee do something like that? Can the committee work on saying, okay, we'll allow the e-bikes, but now we're going to work together and figure out what we can do as a community to facilitate safety in the park?
I'm not so sure that issue is actually an e-bike issue per se. I think our research is, the evaluation of our research has been that e-bikes don't create an incremental safety hazard other than bringing more people into the park. Means that there's more people into the park, there's more likelihood to have incidents, conflict incidents. So if we found another way to bring 10,000 more just regular bicycle people into the park, regular pedestrians into the park, we would have more incidents. We would have more trail erosion. It's not a function of e-bikes per se. And I think that the pickle we're in is the singular person that would help us to develop that plan, execute that plan, coordinate that plan is a ranger. And so we can bring a lot of really great ideas together, and I think we have a really, really committed advocacy base to do things, but even our volunteer network is starting to suffer now because of the lack of the ranger. So I think the ranger and the funding is kind of the critical thing to help address like the long-term safety of the park. I would say we have a safety danger today, right? Like we don't have a ranger there per se, doing a lot of those essential needs. So, and I think that's when one of the things that we're struggling with, like do we bring e-bikes into the park knowing that there's a lack of resourcing and staffing there? Or do we not and wait and deny a really important group of users that otherwise would be allowed into most other parks into our park?
You know what? I'm going to go with my colleagues on this. I'm going to go with my colleagues on this. I mean, we have kicked this down the road many times, like it's already been said, and I ride a Peloton, you know, I don't I don't have an e-bike quite yet, but I'm going to go with my colleagues on this and just, you know, trust that the process will work itself out. And in terms of the CFD, I support that.
Great. So if the direction on the CFD is to move forward, I think we need some due process there. But I think we would also love to continue a dialogue with the council on the progress of the CFD and additional things we can do to improve safety and implement the management plan.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yes, sir. Councilmember.
Captain, what was your name? Sorry. Don Yu. I don't think you came the first time we discussed this matter. Is that correct?
No. My friend Vince told me about that meeting, yeah.
People's stories matter, right? And yours, at least for me, clearly does. And I think had you come maybe at the last meeting, we would have felt differently. I'd like to say I don't think any of us are being lobbied from the anti-e-bike lobby, right? It's more so we just really wanted to be sure. And I think your story and the way you told it meant a lot. And I just want to thank you for coming. And just want to say you're on speed dial if anything happens.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your, is that what you need? If you got?
Yeah, I would like formal, I've heard each of you say your own opinions, but maybe if anybody could sort of put that into a motion. So are you allowing Class 1 e-bikes currently?
I'll make a motion for allowing Class 1 e-bikes.
And pursuing an amendment to the CFD.
And pursuing an amendment to the CFD.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. There's no other business before this council. The meeting is adjourned until Tuesday, June 3rd, 2025. Thank you, everyone.